There is an internet mystery portrayed very well by a YouTuber known as Kane Pixels. Kane Pixels had previously made animations related to Attack on Titan until uploading his first Backrooms video on January 7th, 2022. After watching the video, you would probably be left in shock and wouldn't think to investigate further. If you were to investigate a little more before leaving the video, you would come across an unknown link that leads to a series of mysterious images with no explanation at all. Surprisingly, all these videos are throwing you off because in the comments of the video, Kane also posted a link that leads to a playlist of every Backrooms video he has ever made so far. Every video in the playlist is in order, which means the first video we are supposed to really start off with is Backrooms Overflow. Backrooms Overflow starts off by showing clips of different camera perspectives from the outside while a mysterious man in the background is talking about presidential topics related to the Soviet Union. The camera then glitches almost like it was a VHS tape starting to burn and transitions into an alarm system alerting an overload, then switches to a different perspective showing a strange note approved by an unknown person, Ivan Beck, while something is obviously being created in the background. On the strange note, you can see the date August 2nd, 1972 written on it, and this is very interesting because the next video showcases an unusual machine being tested that seemed to be recorded 10 years later. Backrooms prototype seems to showcase a very unusual type of machine that attempts to do something and fails based on the short alarm and smoke. Something that is obvious based on the title is that this is a prototype, which means it's the first machine used to help the adventure, which then led to more machines being created, and finally the third test came along. I have no idea how many prototypes were made, but all I know is that this is one of them.
On July 2nd, 1988, the Async research facility tested its low-proximity magnetic distortion system for the third time. The third test is the third video in Kane's playlist, basically explaining that the three videos I already discussed were all related to the tests. So in theory, the odd green shocks from Backrooms Overflow was actually the first test related to the Backrooms creation project. It's also mentioned that Ivan Beck, the person who was on the note, is the vice director of a mysterious foundation called Async. During a press conference, Ivan Beck explained that if the tests went well, then the United States government would offer a solution to all current and future storage. If the testing went well, the United States government would also use it for residential needs and to save billions of dollars on property construction and management. It was said that this was the sixth test, the last test before the Backrooms was really created. It is a mystery where the other four recordings of the tests are, but all we know now is that October 17th, 1989 was the day that something was created that changed the world forever. The really eerie thing about this story is the reasoning behind all of this Backrooms drama. It starts off where the government wanted to save money on storage, so this facility ran tests to try to solve the issue, but instead caused something that will never be forgotten. Think of it this way: you are coding a game, and after running tests, you finally complete what you've been wanting to achieve. You later then realize that there is an unfixable issue with the code, which leads to unwanted things happening to your game. The only difference in this situation is that those issues are true issues that are actually causing death in the real world, and the only way to solve this issue is by moving to Mars. So there you have it, people. This concludes how the Backrooms were created, but now let's talk about the after effects. On September 23rd, 1996, the discovery of a mysterious camera led to the upload of the first found footage video that seemed to be recorded in a strange yellow maze.
Camera rolling. All right, and action.
After this footage was found, you could see the dramatic rise of missing people in only a couple months.
That was good. I'm thinking we get a wide angle and then we're done. Okay?
All right. Yeah. Cool. Like how much further? Like
a little more. A little more.
that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
The only important thing in this video that we should take note of is a cameraman who got grabbed by an unknown creature right before the camera fell down the hole, which led to a teleportation back to the regular world. The next video we should be talking about is March 11th, 1990 archive, but all it shows is random unexplainable images, which I can only make the assumption that some of them are images of people taking notes and investigating what in the world they have just created. A video where I can actually talk a lot on is Kane Pixels' Missing Persons. Missing Persons seems to show 5 posters of missing people, then right after shows a chart of the dramatic rise of disappearances in only 1 year. Based on the video, First Contact, October 17, 1989, was the day that the Backrooms had officially been created. In the missing people chart, you could see that it was at a normal status, but all of a sudden after hitting 1989, more and more people went missing due to the fact that the Backrooms was created near that time. Now remember when I said that the cameraman being taken by the monster at the end of Found Footage Part 1 was important? That is because later in Backrooms Missing Persons, you can see 3 investigators in hazmat suits investigating the halls, and they later come across a dead body on the other side of the room, which could either be the cameraman from Found Footage 1, one of the 5 missing people, or one of the thousands of people in the missing chart.
It's organic. Be some kind of fungus.
Subject is male, somewhere between 18 and 21 years old.
The documenter estimates that the death was around 5 days ago, which means that it is definitely not the cameraman from Found Footage 1, since the first Found Footage video was in 1996, but the body was found in 1990. If we take a look at all the missing posters, we can see that the dead body isn't wearing any of the same clothes in the pictures, but even if that doesn't make any sense, none of the people on the posters look like the dead body that was found. But then something very unexplainable happened for no reason at all.
Welcome to the Project KV-31 Research and Development Team. In this short, informative video, you will be briefed on the required protocol in regard to Project KV-31, as well as receive an overview of future development plans. What is Project KV-31?
Project KV-31 is the name of the portal used to go inside and outside of the Backrooms. It is explained that you cannot enter the Backrooms by yourself and you must enter with 3 or more people. This is said right before the recording glitches and transitions into the POV of someone in a hazmat suit. The person in the hazmat suit is recording his exploration inside the Backrooms, and as he is exploring with the other 2 guards, he hears a conversation in the distance and decides to investigate where it's coming from. He enters a room and calls his friends to come check out the noise, but for some reason they aren't responding. He turns the camera and notices that he sees his friends and himself walking by right before the lights flicker and they disappear.
Open!
The cameraman continues to explore the maze and ends up finding a room which takes him to safety, but the man is still lost and is trying to find humanity again.
Hello? Hey!
7 cameras were set up to detect the motion or sound coming from the area. March 5th on a Monday night, 7 alerts went off, starting with motion detected from 3 researchers passing by a camera. It then went on to motion detected from the 3 researchers returning from where they were going, motion detected from the supervisor passing by a camera, sound detected from the portal's barrier closing, noise detected coming from the background, noise detected due to a microphone faulty, and finally motion detected with no description at all. This is probably due to the fact that there is a mysterious thing moving on the side of the screen that no one has any idea what it could be. After the original cameraman went missing, a new cameraman named Marvin has took his spot. Marvin and a crew of 3 other people go into the backrooms once again and explore until they come across an odd room with holes all over the ground with a door on the other side of the room. One of the researchers walked to the other side and opened the door. The researcher immediately told Marvin to make his way to him because what he witnessed seemed to be very important. As Marvin is making his way over, he accidentally trips into one of the holes and falls into another part of the backrooms. Marvin starts to hear noises, so he goes to investigate and finds a hole which leads to a weird red neighborhood. Marvin explores the neighborhood and hears someone shouting in the distance. He hears it coming from a certain house and he decides to go inside it. When entering the home, he instantly notices upside down signs inside the house. He makes his way past the signs and goes through another hallway which takes him to another room which looks like it has already been occupied, almost like someone had been living there. All of this is happening while someone is shouting for help in the distance, and Marvin is looking for whoever is shouting to potentially save them. He walks past the trash and sees a big empty room with a tall figure in the distance. The tall figure then starts screaming at him and chases him outside the house.
That is not a fucking person!
Marvin runs back inside where he was before, out of the neighborhood, and begs for help by asking for some sort of way back up the hole. One of his friends throws something down to help Marvin, and Marvin gets out of the hole safely. Backrooms report seems to show the official Async building at the beginning of the video. It then transitions into a clip showing 4 researchers standing on the other side of an opening door. Then it cuts to what seems to be Ivan Beck standing there watching them come from the complex. It fades out and fades back into someone walking down a hall and making his way somewhere while 2 people review the footage that Marvin took inside the red neighborhood. The man continues his journey and finally makes it to a phone which he picks up to dial someone and talk to them about something we cannot hear. It cuts to black and shows a slideshow of images that were seen in Backrooms Pitfalls. There are also images shown of people boarding off the pitfalls so that whatever was down there couldn't come up and kill anyone. Backrooms' presentation starts off by showing a video of an explanation on what Project KB31 is. It abruptly cuts off and presents the concept of potentially adding houses for residents to live inside the complex. It is also mentioned that Async is thinking of expanding the portal to fit larger things inside the portal, such as trucks and large equipment. It then shows certain things the Backrooms would include, such as transportation with the train, offices, storage, and the houses that people would live in. It then suddenly cuts to clips of people who seem to be giving someone a tour. The person getting the tour seems to be someone important who is probably visiting from the government. In one of the clips, you could see them having a conversation discussing stuff most likely related to the backrooms, and all of a sudden, the sound of an alarm goes off which seems to be coming from the audio of a camera. One of the people from the meeting got up to look at what was happening, and it seemed to be old footage of the guard who went missing in Backrooms' informational video. The weird thing is the fact that this video takes place on May 5th, 1990, but the informational video takes place on February 29th, 1990, which basically means that the cameraman went missing for 2.5 months before finally being found on camera. Or maybe I'm wrong. I went to do more research and came across a comment that mentions the lore of the informational video. Basically what the comment said was that the Async employee who got lost in the video actually went 2.5 months into the future. It turns out that the little room he went in where he heard talking was actually the room that warped him 2.5 months into the future, and while he was being teleported, people declared him as missing, but in reality he just time traveled at the speed of light for him, but really took 2.5 months for other people. So really the alarm going off was live and it wasn't just the audio coming from the camera, and it turns out that it wasn't actually old footage and it was happening at the moment. The second part isn't what you would think, and instead it has to do with someone completely different than part 1 because the person from part 1 obviously died. This time it has to do with a kid who discovered something on the floor which didn't seem real. For some reason, every time this kid put anything in between the tape, it would warp into the ground and teleport somewhere else. This obviously explains how the guy in found footage 1 fell into the backrooms. It was a glitched part of the ground that he tripped into and went into the backrooms. This time, instead of the kid tripping into the glitched ground, background, she put a measuring tape inside and wanted to test what would happen. The measuring tape ended up falling through and pulling her into the backrooms with the tape. Nothing too important happened in the first half of the video besides the strange room she found until she came across a room with a car crashed into a wall. This might have happened when someone was driving and the car suddenly fell through the ground and crashed into the wall. A question I do have is, where did the driver go? In the video, you can see body marks on the ground leading to more rooms. There is a possibility that the body marks are from the driver after crashing, but then where could he be now? Something I've been wondering for a while now is, what if the people who have died so far in this series, or even off camera, are the monsters roaming around in the backrooms? It's a possibility, but it's also a long shot. The girl decides to follow the body marks and it takes her to a doorway into a very dark room. Luckily, her camera has night vision so she can go in easier. She steps inside and is greeted with 3 different rooms she can go in. She decides to go left first, but there doesn't seem to be anything in there besides a bed. She turns around and notices a light coming from one of the rooms and vines growing all over the walls and ceiling. She goes inside and sees some sort of plant growing inside the room. She walks towards a painting and barely has any time to look at it before hearing a noise next to her. The noise seems to come from the plant moving, except the entire time it wasn't a plant and instead it was a monster sleeping but woke up due to the girl. She runs and finds completely new areas in the backrooms and finally makes it to a room that has a dead end and she has no escape. Instead of killing her off, she sits in the corner until all of a sudden the room starts turning green and everything starts to break. This is obviously a reference to Backrooms Overflow. Reunion starts off by showing a man taking notes on something which is the same scientist from Backrooms' report. It then cuts to a cup with coordinates on them, and after doing research I found a comment that mentioned the coordinates led to a lab in the real world called MLML. After showing the cup, it then shows 2 people driving toward the area where the pitfalls were, taking an RC car with them and preparing to take down the walls that they had created. They take down the walls and use the RC car to investigate the pitfalls area to make sure everything is safe so that they can start building over the pitfalls to safely make their way to the other side for the purpose of entering the door. After investigating, they find out that everything is safe and that they could start building. After finishing, they make their way to the door and end up in a weird dark room. There is a total of 3 people there to explore: Mark, Randall, and Marvin, the cameraman. As they continue exploring, they come across a different part of the backrooms. The 3 continue to look around and find a strange map written on the walls. The map doesn't seem to have any writing on it, but it does look like the entrance to the backrooms and the path they took to get there. Mark tries to get in contact with Standard, but there was no response. They decide to head back, but as they are making their way over there, someone jumps from the darkness and attacks Mark. Whoever attacked Mark now had his gun and was threatening to kill him. The unknown person then recognizes Marv, and Marv also recognizes who the unknown person was. It turns out that the person in this video was Peter, and if you don't know who Peter is, Peter was the one who went missing in the informational video and everyone thought he was dead. Something I really want to talk about now is if I was really correct. Was that comment really correct? Is it true that he time traveled 2 months into the future and that's why everyone thought he was dead? It doesn't really make sense to think that now due to the fact that even Marv is confused about where he's been, even though he was obviously seen in Backrooms' presentation setting off an alarm. If he was seen in Backrooms' presentation live on camera, then wouldn't they go and look for him that same day without any struggle? There's a reason he was barely found almost 20 days later. Maybe the whole time it actually was an old unseen camera recording, which means he actually was by himself in the backrooms for 2 months straight. Peter depressingly talks about how everyone he knows thinks he's dead, and out of pure anger, pulls the trigger on Mark. There is a possibility that the entities who roam around are the ones who actually created the backrooms, and it turns out all along that the portal was the one to actually create a way inside, and the portal was the one to uncover the hidden complex. Maybe this entire time Async was doing a bad thing by creating danger and an entrance to something very, very life-threatening. This would also explain why in Backrooms Overflow you could see the green cracks developing in the background, even though Backrooms Overflow was filmed in the 1970s rather than the 80s. When the backrooms were actually created, there was a chance that the Backrooms were being created by entities in the background of Backrooms Overflow, and all Async did was create a passageway into the complex. The question is, who came up with the idea to create a portal, which by the way, Async had no idea what it would create in the first place, and potentially make something to solve the price of the government storage? Maybe the 1970s was when Async started their research, and 10 years later they were finally ready to create different machines to test, then discovered a way to make an entrance to something they had no idea what they were originally gonna make. Something that I didn't mention that none of you probably thought of and would now bring a big twist to this video is how were the other
9,223,372,36,854,775,807
levels created?